That's how big of a thing that was. And I do think now it's like, it's almost like Sandy Hook normalized mass shootings. And now in that same degree, it all like, it just, you know, it holds the attention of people for like maybe a day, maybe 2 days. And then we just move on. I don't know if it's like also because like our attention span is limited. I don't know if it's because we, you know, I've just been thinking about it a lot. I don't know if it's because of our attention spans that are limited now as a consequence of like TikTok or whatever, but it is kind of weird. And I don't know if it's because like, I'm not saying that this is like a deliberate effort to like normalize. It's like hyper normalization of these kinds of like climate atrocities. I don't think that, but it is strange. It is strange to me that it's like, I mean, it isn't as bad as Katrina that was half of Louisiana's coastline that was destroyed. Bro, Asheville is gone, brother. Asheville, North Carolina is gone. The dam broke. It's over. You know, it's just like fully underwater at this point. It's crazy. I think it is definitely Katrina level. Yeah. Regarding coverage, bridges are rendering entire regions virtually entirely inaccessible by land. There's no power. There's no internet. I'm sure information will be scarce coming out of it from the ground versus being able to get aerial shots. Like this is like apocalyptic levels of destruction, as a chatter put it. And I don't know, man. It's just, it's really fucked up. It is really, really, really fucked up. One aspect of this story that's really fucked up is that like we are directly causing it with anthropogenic climate change, okay? As the world heats up more and more, I guess, in the simplest terms, directly as a consequence of our emissions. Things that scientists keep saying are going to happen are happening over and over again. And a big chunk of people are just like, nah, I'm different, dog. We're different. It's fine. The only like the most significant, most consequential climate change policy that we have seems to be the border policy, like a more military, a more militant border, a more white nativist, more militant border policy is like the only thing that we are setting up for. Like we're not hardening our infrastructure even enough. And half of the entire political field basically denies it's even happening and is like trying to legislate away the mention of it. Like you look at Florida, it's like they're too busy being like, nah, climate change is fake. Like, don't say it. Don't say it's real, please. And it blows my mind. Fango Lives, our EV correspondent, says, easy way to explain climate change makes storms stronger. Global warming makes water warmer. Warmer water has more energy. So storms passing over that water gain more energy from the warmer water, which means there's stronger storms. We've added several billion nuclear bombs worth of energy to the ocean in a couple decades. Yes, that is a good way to explain it. Thank you. Yeah, that's also partially due to climate change migration. No, I know. That's why I'm saying like our border security measures is a climate change infrastructure hardening initiative. It's because there are going to be more and more people that previously worked in like the agricultural sector that are not going to be able to work. So they're going to migrate as their economy is devastated. They're going to migrate north. They're going to come to America because there's ecological disaster there and they don't have any money to even harden their infrastructure nor overcome the damage that climate change is causing in those regions. But what is crazy about this beyond that, beyond the migration patterns, right? We literally have basically at this point, you know, developing nation levels of infrastructure in the wealthiest nation on the planet, dude. Like, it's wild to me that we just straight up have a situation where half of the political population, half of our government is like, it doesn't exist, so don't do anything about it. The other half is like, it does exist, but we are going to be susceptible to political pressure from the right and from moneyed interest, like in the oil and gas sector. So we're going to keep drilling, baby. We're going to keep fracking, drill baby drill, but like, you know, gay version. And we hear you, we see you, we want to trust the science, but also we're not going to trust the science that much because as long as it harms the bottom line of like oil and gas giants, then we're going to not trust the science that much, right? How are immigration and disasters of hurricanes correlated? No, you're looking at one aspect of how climate change and the once in a lifetime like weather events like climate change created catastrophes occur in America, but you're failing to consider that when this happens in like Mexico, it's even more devastating. But beyond that, climate change also causes drought in a lot of places, especially in Latin America. Not only do they not have enough money to harden their infrastructure against this sort of thing when this kind of devastation occurs and it completely collapses entire ecologies, but beyond that, you have climate refugees. You have people that can no longer work the land because the land is no longer tenable. So what do? They migrate. They migrate further north. So you have climate refugees. You have climate refugees that are like are coming to America because like at least there's still land that you can work on and make money on. So that's how millions of people are displaced. And America knows that like it's going to happen more and more. It's kind of like the classic Chevron, Exxon Mobil having full knowledge of the carbon emissions causing anthropogenic climate change and global warming in general, and like refusing to do anything about it. And as a matter of fact, having that full knowledge and then only using that knowledge to create PR structures against it so that you can create an environment where like 30 to 40% of the entire fucking nation doesn't even believe it's real, right? That's what they did since the 80s. They were like, oh, this is going to be a problem in the future. So let's make sure that it doesn't become a problem for us and our bottom line by creating an entire system in media to just lie to the American public and to say that it's like bullshit. And that is one of the fucking negative consequences of this reality, because you're seeing biblical levels of destruction. You're watching biblical levels of destruction. And what are some Americans saying about it? How are some people reckoning with this reality? How are some people dealing with this reality? They're dealing with it by blaming weather machines or something. And it's no different than mass shootings. Here's why it's no different than mass shootings. Mass shootings are not a natural disaster, but we analyze it like it's a natural disaster. Why? Because we are completely captive to corporate interests in that regard. Gun manufacturers make too much money for us to ever actually deal with the gun violence that happens in this country. So if you are refusing to reckon with the reality in front of you, you are going to look for alternative realities as to why things are happening. And that's why there are so many conspiratorial psychopaths out there. Okay, that's my point. My point is there are so many conspiracy brained losers out there because they've been duped into refusing to acknowledge what the truth is. We're so far removed from that. And it's the same principle behind gun violence as well, which we also analyze like it's a naturally occurring phenomenon. We're like, oh, do not look to the actual problem, which is guns. Okay, mass arsenal of weapons that are readily available to the public. More guns than there are people, but God forbid you analyze it with the actual root cause of the problem. No, we got to desperately cling on to anything and everything we can. Oh, it's got to be door control. We got to give more guns to the teachers. We got to do this. We got to do that. And that's why so many people at this point, now that they've exhausted all other options, whenever fucking mass shootings occur, they now go, oh, it's because the shooter is trans. I've imagined that the shooter is trans and trans people are doing these mass shootings. Or, this is a psyop. This is a government psyop. They actually are doing this because they want to do gun control, which never happens, by the way. Worst psyop of all time. So that's it. That's why people hyper focus on like insane This happened in Hawaii too. Oh, it must be like space lasers that did the fires. It cannot be that the brush is just simply drier than it has ever been. It cannot be like full-blown ecological collapse that caused massive wildfires. It's got to be space lasers. Look at the blue cars. The blue cars didn't light on fire. Like, we are purposely making our population dumber and dumber and dumber because it's like easier to control and manipulate in some ways, but also simultaneously, this is not tenable. This is not sustainable. Okay. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so fucked up in every way, shape, and form. Like, the way we analyze the situation is so messed up. Here, this is a Matt Christman quote that it talks about it. Okay. These guys that marched in Charlottesville, these are the people who are aware of the unspoken premise of the sort of zombie neoliberalism that we're living in, which is that we're coming to a point where there's going to be ecological catastrophe and that it's going to require either massive redistribution of the ill-gotten gains of the first world or genocide. And these are the first people who have basically said, well, if that's the choice, then I choose genocide. And they're getting everyone else ready intellectually and emotionally for why that's going to be okay when it happens, why they are not really people. When we're putting all this money into more walls and drones and bombs and guns to keep them away so that we can watch them die with clear consciences, it's because we have been loaded with the ideology that these guys are now starting to express publicly. On the other side of them, we have people who are saying in full voice, no, we have the resource to save everybody, to give everybody a decent and worthwhile existence, and that is what we want. And that is the real difference between these two. And you can tell that to the next who tells you that they're actually two sides of the same coin. We are the people who say we have the money, we have the capacity, we have a surplus of food. We are the people who can save everybody else. We just choose not to. And the problem with neoliberalism and the problem with like the Democratic Party's capitulation to right-wing framing on issues is that they are also slaves of the same master. the master of capital, they are still deeply, they have a deeply vested interest in maintaining this corporate oligopoly, this corporate oligarchy. So they